Hi everyone, here to make an update. It's been quite a while since my last one, but I feel I have information now that I can share, as this past year was a little different than I've had in the past 5 since I've started with ITP, idiopathic thrombocytopenic purpura. So I went a year and 6 months in terms of a stretch without a crash this past episode, which was great. This is the longest I've been with ITP where I haven't had a crash that I've had to take medication, typically steroids, dexamethasone, and hospitalization. So that was quite the bonus. So I went a year and a half usually using natural supplements, which was great. I had throughout the year and a half several times, numerous times, I would say, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 times where my numbers were coming down, and I was able to naturally have them come up again, which was great. And I did that with some supplements. I would take monolaurin, which is a coconut-based anti-bacteria, anti-parasitic, anti-microbial natural supplement. Again, it's called monolaurin. I was also taking a probiotic by Renew Life. Actually, I have them right here. I'll show you. So this is the monolaurin here. Monolaurin, I take that. They come in these little pellets, and I take the pellets 3 times a day with meals. Like I was mentioning, I also take a probiotic, so that's daily in the morning. I'll do it with breakfast, and it's by a company called Renew Life. They have one also for 80 billion. I started with that, and that one was also good. That's something that I found out on the pdsa.org forum. So it's a Platelet Disorder Support Association forum, which I also highly recommend. Those with ITP are typically on there, or those with family members or dependents with ITP are on there looking for advice and support and things like that. And there's some really good resources as to what's working, and people are posting things that are helping them. So this was one that I have to give compliments to the members. Someone had been taking this and numbers were going up with the probiotics, and it's natural, and I've been using that, which has been good. I've also been taking vitamin D3 and K2. I've been doing that typically daily or every other day. Anywhere from 3,000 IUs, usually 3 to 5 of them a day, or I'll take them every other day. In the past, I was taking vitamin D3 and K2 once a week, and it was a larger dose, and so that would last me the week. This one that I'm currently using, I use it more daily or every other day. So those are some things that were helping. Also electrolytes, there's some videos that I've done that also discuss some of my success with electrolytes. I find I'm using that a little bit less now. The drink is called Pedialyte by Abbott Labs. It's a clear, non-flavored beverage that has sodium, magnesium, potassium, zinc is also in it, various other electrolytes. And I especially found when I first started with that my numbers would come up when I would use it, and so I would take it when numbers were coming down, and it did seem to help. So back to the summary. Like I mentioned, it's been about a year and a half since I without a crash. I did have a crash in November of 2021, which was a little unexpected. I don't know exactly why the case was. I was having some stress at work, so maybe that was something that was a factor. However, I did need hospitalization for that, so I was in the hospital for 3 days. I was given dexamethasone, the steroid, and IVIG, and my numbers did start to increase again. I took a little bit of time off of work, which was 2 weeks, and that helped to balance things out perhaps as well. But like I said, prior to that, it had been a year and a half, which I was really happy about, very positive. Naturally, I was able to get my numbers up. I wanted to also make this video to talk about last year because something had happened that was a little different than normal. Typically, my range of platelet count is anywhere from about 180 to 200, 210. So typically it's in there, and if it comes down below that, it starts to essentially go to zero. In the past couple of years, though, naturally I've been able to have it stay stable and then to move back up naturally with the things that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. But in the past, typically, once my numbers were starting to come down, they would go to 0. Now this year, my numbers in spring were in that 180 range. They were fine. And then as of like March of 2021, last year, my numbers started to fluctuate between, I would say, like 100 to about 145. And they were basically up and down up until November. So from March to November, that whole period, that whole kind of spring, summer, and beginning of fall, my numbers were up at like 140, and then it would come down to about 110. Then they would go back up to like 135, and then they come back down to 100. And so I spent all that spring, summer, and fall trying to naturally bring them up, and it was bizarre. I'd never had that before. Like I said earlier, it was always between 180 and 200 when they were normal, or then they would basically crash. I had some turnarounds where numbers were sometimes, let's say they would go down to like 130 or 100, and then I would take some of my supplements. I would also take some days off of work. I found like 2 or 3 days, and my numbers sometimes would also turn around. Perhaps maybe with a couple days rest and things like that, along with my natural supplements, and then they would go back to like 170, 180, 190, and they would stay there, and then they would be in that normal range for a while. But this past year in 2021, for some reason, they were again between that 140 and 100. So that was quite bizarre. In the summer, the other thing too that was interesting is I ended up getting in touch with a naturopath in Michigan who I'd been following on YouTube for about a year or so, and he talked quite a bit about diet. He talks quite a bit about intermittent fasting. But the main thing that attracted me to him was that he had a bout of mold in his body, and that had affected his heart and his health, obviously. But he was able to overcome that with natural supplements. Being a naturopath himself, he was able to find different natural supplements that eventually, over 11 months, was able to get rid of his mold, which especially had been providing issues to his heart. So I ended up this 2021 in the summer, I believe it was June, July, August, that we worked together. He sent me natural supplements that I took over the summer. But unfortunately, the supplements that he sent, which were mostly fulvic acid, which I wasn't aware of, I'd never been in contact before. Fulvic acid, I looked into it. It was a natural supplement that is excellent for improving one's health. So I took that. You're supposed to take, the program was essentially for how long? I think it was like 10 weeks or 2 months, something like that, or whatever the entire duration of the supplements were. I had, I believe it's about 5 different supplements that were all based with fulvic acid. And I took them for a week, and my numbers started to drop. So I immediately stopped and went back on my natural supplements, and my numbers came back up again. And then I started later on again with the supplements to be like, okay, maybe, just a random time, let's try them again. And then my numbers came down again. They never went below 100, but they ended up coming down quite a bit, so I stopped using those natural supplements. I spoke with the naturopath. We only had 3 appointments together, so after that I mentioned to him what had happened and told him essentially maybe it's not mold that's the issue. And so we left it at that. I haven't taken the supplements since. So that was another thing that happened this summer that was interesting. That's something that I obviously had some hope for, that maybe that would attack whatever was in my system. I've been a little more suspicious that perhaps these issues are in one's gut. I had felt that perhaps it was mold that might have been an issue with me that was affecting my platelet production with ITP. So I'm going to continue. Obviously with a different program this summer again. We'll see with natural solutions if I'm able to find anything that can ultimately stop ITP so that I don't have to go in for regular blood tests, which I'm currently doing every 2 weeks roughly right now. At the moment, my numbers are good. They're at a good level. They're at 182. I had my numbers come down a little bit over the last couple months, since November, since I was in the hospital, but I've been able to bring them up naturally. I took off a little bit of time from work. I also took my supplements to make sure I was on them regularly. I also wanted to discuss a couple things that I'm going to do a little bit more in depth with some additional videos that are to come, and they'll be soon. They won't be as long a period as this past time. However, I've been meditating more in the last year and a half or so. That wasn't something I was doing a lot of, but I've been doing it more so, and I found when my numbers were coming down, I would meditate. So I'll do a video based on what I do for meditation. It's fairly straightforward. I typically take 20 minutes where I close my eyes, I sit down, and I do breathing exercises where I'll breathe in for 4 seconds, I'll hold my breath for 7 seconds, and then I'll breathe out for 8 seconds. And then I'll say a word, which is, my word is peace. You can choose any word, of course. But something that gives you kind of like a tranquility or something that gives you ease. And then you do that process over the 20 minutes. And I find closing my eyes also helps quite a bit. And so I'll do that for 20 minutes, and I'll do that twice a day ideally when I feel like I'm very stressed or numbers are coming down. Minimum once a day, but twice a day is better. And I do find it eases me, it kind of releases some anxiety, and you kind of feel more tranquil. And I think that's been very helpful with me having platelets coming up and having kind of a natural response that's positive with numbers coming up with my platelets. I'll also like to say that my diet has also improved quite a bit over the last year and a half. I'll also have a video on this relatively soon as well in terms of several things, but just to give you a little bit of a preview, some things that I've been adding to my diet include beef liver, chicken liver. There are concentrations of vitamins and minerals in the organs, and I find that when I take those, I feel quite good. They've been very helpful. I also been eating a lot of sauerkraut. The sauerkraut has high vitamin C as well as other minerals and other things, so I take that daily. Apparently it's very good for your flora and your gut, and it helps as a prebiotic. So I've been eating a lot more sauerkraut. I also been drinking goat's milk quite a bit. I also eat quite a bit of yogurt, grass-fed. Between those two, I find I try to do that daily. Apparently, it's a base for platelet production from some of the things I'm reading. I know that there's some discussion about being dairy-free and whatnot, so I don't know. I guess one has to try that in one's diet and see how things go and how the body reacts to that, as each individual might be a little different. But I find for me, I don't have as much bloating and things like that when I take goat's milk versus cow's milk. I enjoy it, and I feel the calcium's important for platelet production from what I've been reading online. So those are some things that I've been adding to my diet. I also eat quite a bit of beef. I do beef bone broth as well. I buy bones with marrow, and I just put them in water and boil them, and I'll have soup. And I'll try to do that regularly. I find that also helps with having good numbers. I've been doing some reading about that, and I think that's very beneficial for one's health, and I would say for mine it's been good. Getting good sleep, important. In terms of diet, I also have to say I've been adding protein in the morning for my breakfast, and I think that has also potentially a factor there, where I've been adding chicken specifically in the morning, as well as a protein shake that has some greens in it and whatnot, and I have those two things in the morning, and I notice that numbers are pretty good when I'm having those in my diet. How I'm able to also look at some of this and factor in and say, I think it's helping, is I've also journal. So if you're not journaling, I would recommend to journal every day what you're eating. a little bit too about what you did that day. You know, if you're having platelet blood tests, to add those in. Sometimes I'll add temperature in there, just little notes where I went, how things are at work, so that you can look back at them as I do to see like, oh wow, you know, my numbers really jumped during a specific week or a time period, and I can go back and take a look at a couple things and be like, I think maybe those things have helped. So anyways, these are just some updates from this past year in terms of 2021. I didn't update much in 2021 because of my numbers being a little awkward, where they were not in my normal range of 180 to 200, but rather, as I mentioned, in that 100 to 140 range. So I was trying to see if that was something that was going to go away or what the case was. But then in November, as I mentioned, I had my crash, which was unexpected, and my numbers returned to 180, between 180 and 200, and they've kind of been there since. So I haven't had that, you know, that range where it's 100, 140. You know, typically it's only there momentarily if it ever comes down to those numbers, but I've never had it like I did in 2021, where from March to November it was basically in that range the entire time. I know work was quite stressful this past year. I've just switched jobs just in the last couple weeks. We're going to see if that's also a bit of a factor. There's definitely a lot less stress in this job, which is nice. Stress, you know, as you know, I'm sure too, can be a bit of a catalyst for flare-ups and numbers coming down and stuff like that. So anyways, I'll be updating again shortly here this year. I'll be doing so a little more often than I did last year. On a last note here, I'll leave with the video. I also would like to recommend the book Wish by Spirit by Joan Young. If you haven't read that book and you have ITP, or you know someone with ITP, Thrombocytopenia, I would highly recommend to read this book. It's by Joan Young, the author who had ITP in the late 80s, early 90s. This was pre-internet, and she went through quite a process of going through the hospital and the kind of the regular medical side of ITP, including treatments, having her spleen removed, which I don't recommend to anyone. I still have my spleen, but this book was a good example of that. She had her spleen removed and still had issues with ITP and thrombocytopenia. She took all kinds of different pharmaceuticals, chemotherapy, all those things, and things weren't improving with her condition. And then finally she started to go the natural route, just through her own intuition and with some people that she had met. I won't say the rest of what's in the book, but it's an excellent book, and it shows her journey through ITP and ultimately the incredible results that she's had. So highly recommend it. Again, it's Wish by Spirit by Joan Young, and you can find that on Amazon, whether through a physical book or Kindle. Again, thank you for watching my video. Hope that you have strong platelets, that your situation is improving. I've been now since 2016 July with ITP. Things have improved a lot with different natural supplements and assistance I've gotten from natural professionals, as well as the pdsa.org forum, where others with ITP have shared things that have worked for them, including some of their natural solutions. So if anyone's just starting with ITP, things are going to improve. Think there's going to be change, obviously, with one's diet, with one's health, but there's help out there, and you'll see as your body improves, you know, you can start to manage it a lot better. I'm an example. Okay, all the best. Hope for strong platelets. God bless. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.